No Jumper with Adam 22 has had a wild ride. But now, today, it's just been uncovered. Adam 22 is now saying No Jumper is going broke. What's going on, everybody? It's Professor Zeus, and I'm back with another video. If this is your first time at the channel, just know I greatly appreciate you. Thank you for stopping by. Go ahead and hit subscribe. We're on our way to 2,000 subscribers. Guys, listen. Who would have ever thought? No Jumper, the YouTube podcast that used to have a pulse on underground rap and hip hop culture. Adam 22 has come out and saying, they are going broke. The empire that Adam 22 he's been able to build is, crumbling and falling apart. I mean, they still got 4.8 million subscribers on YouTube. But honestly, it's not shocking because if you really peel back the layers, this was kind of destined to happen. Now, I'm going to try to break this down, how they blew up during, the pandemic, why scaling too fast can, be not so beneficial, and how always leaning into controversy and shock value, like, letting your wife sleep with OnlyFans models for clout, it doesn't always pay the bills, right? So stick around, because it's a wild ride about, creating content, value, and what happens when the train that you've been riding, what happens if it falls off the tracks? Hit that like button if you're ready, and let's get into it.
There's something that I've been hiding from you guys. No Jumper is going broke. I know that might sound crazy. Between both of our YouTube channels last month, we got over 25 million views. We're doing well on Facebook and Snapchat. We employ quite a few of the hottest content creators on the West Coast, and we pump out an insane amount of content on a weekly basis. How could we be going broke? Well, let's start here. We expanded too much during COVID at just about the exact moment that our revenue streams all took a hit. We hired a whole bunch of editors and other employees, and we bought a huge office building that cost us almost $4 million, thinking that the growth that we were experiencing during the pandemic was going to continue. And unfortunately, that did not happen. Our YouTube numbers, which had doubled or even tripled, gradually returned to normal. Our Snapchat and Facebook numbers, which had exploded during COVID, sometimes even hitting 6 figures a month, shrank by about 80% or more. Our Patreon, which was absolutely killing it for a year or two when we were doing uncensored, aka nude interviews with up-and-coming superstars like Kazumi and Sky Bree, fell off quite a bit with the launch of Plug Talk and a decreased interest in seeing us interview stars. In addition to that, you might recall that the channel took quite a hit when approximately 8 of our hosts left the platform in March of 2023. Although we've definitely largely recovered and managed to build up a very healthy roster of talent since then, that certainly took a toll on our business for a while as well. All that stuff hurt the business, but we were still solidly profitable. That is, until the last few months, where we experienced 2 major L's that we never could have seen coming. First, we lost the No Jumper Instagram. After almost 10 years of building it up and essentially no strikes on our account, we got taken down one day, and we still have absolutely no idea why. We've had no luck getting it back, despite being in contact with what seems like every Instagram recovery guy on the face of the planet. We were bringing in a very solid amount of cash monthly that was keeping us afloat via selling sponsored posts on the account, and that mostly vanished overnight. And while we've been growing the new No Jumper LA account up ever since and managing to sell sponsored collab posts using my Instagram and the No Jumper LA account, DM or email if interested, we aren't making anywhere near as much from Instagram now. Side note, if you're a Meta rep, please DM me. I would love to speak to anyone who could help with this. And second, in addition to that, we have been hit with a bullshit lawsuit from a former employee. Now, essentially everything in this lawsuit is completely fictional, and every lawyer that I've spoken to about it has described this as basically an extortion attempt, but it's still cost us a ton of money already, and it's expected to cost us many hundreds of thousands of dollars to see this through to completion.
All right, let's peel it back real quick. So, let's try to set the stage, right? Back in 2020, pandemic happens, the world's locked down, and everybody's glued to their screens, right? YouTube, TikTok, Twitch, all these different content creators were, essentially eating good. No Jumper was one of them. Adam 22, You know, he had already built a name, you know, interviewing rappers like Lil Pump, XXX Tentacion, you know, so many different people, right, who are like underground at that time. You know, but during the pandemic, you know, they went next level. And that's when you saw a lot of like red pill content, like even Kevin Samuels, Fresh and Fit, all of these people, even what's it called, the verses, all these different types of things exploded during the pandemic, right? You know, views were astronomical, subscriptions going crazy. And then suddenly, you know, No Jumper, it really wasn't just a podcast anymore. It became like a brand, essentially. Patreon, you know, live events, so many different things. They were, you know, they were scaling up. But the thing is, right, a lot of creators, not just like No Jumper, right, they hit the jackpot during the pandemic because a lot of people were desperate for entertainment, right? You didn't have to be a genius to grow. You just had to be consistent, right? And the problem with that, a lot of these people, Adam included, they didn't know how to manage the growth properly, right? It's like, imagine winning the lottery and then blowing it all on like a yacht or a Lambo or a Ferrari instead of investing into the product that actually brought you all the money, right? And you see this all the time, right? Creators go from like a bedroom setup to a full studio, you know, hiring a team, renting, you know, fancy spaces. Adam said he spent four million on an office space, right? But they don't think about the sustainability, right? When the world like officially opened back up, that pandemic bump, it started fading, right? And then that's when the cracks started showing, right? For No Jumper, you know, he's talking about now like they're, you know, strapped for cash, layoffs, you know, canceling projects. And I'm gonna put this video so you guys can watch it in the entirety. He even starts asking people to like subscribe more. And he has like a different tier way of subscriptions so people can, you know, support No Jumper while they're going through this issue, right? So it's essentially like the glory days are behind them. Now, when we talk about scaling, right? Because this is where No Jumper and a ton of other creators, they mess up. Growth is what's supposed to happen, right? More views, more money, more clout. But if you scale too fast without a plan, you're essentially building a house of cards, right? No Jumper went from Adam in that original room with the mic and all that different stuff to like this huge big operation, editors, producers, multiple shows, you know, the bike shop, all those types of things, Whack 100, Flacco, all these different guys, right? That's a lot of overhead, right? And not to mention rent in LA is not cheap, right? And neither is paying a whole production crew, right? So the trap is thinking that the good times will last forever, right? You see this with so many YouTubers, right? Who blew up in 2020 to 2021. They lease the mansion, they buy the G-Wagon or, you know, buy a Lambo, hire a manager who's just a yes man, and then boom, the ad revenue dips, sponsors start pulling out, and now they're stuck, right? No Jumper tried to diversify, right? But it felt too chaotic and not strategic. So many different fights happening on the show, just so many different things, right? And they lean too hard. They lean into like all the edgy type content, right? And all the drama to keep the views coming. But that type of foundation is extremely unstable, right? You can't just keep doubling down on shock value and expect it to work forever, right? And that kind of brings us to like, I guess, the elephant in the room, right? When it's time to address like all this madness and controversy that Adam 22 has found himself in, right? Adam is married to a corn star, Lena the Plug, right? And they did this not too long ago where Adam, I guess, allowed his wife, Lena the Plug, to hook up with Jason Love, who's also another corn star, for an OnlyFans video, right? And that was the choice. And I get it, right? Controversy will get you more clicks. It's, you know, the oldest trick in the book, right? But the internet lost its mind. Twitter went crazy, and, you know, it probably made them a quick bag. But the catch is when your whole brand becomes about degenerate antics, going crazy, like this absurd content, you start to alienate people who are there for the real value, right? Like the raw interviews and hip hop and rap commentary that No Jumper was originally built on, right? Obviously, controversy can boost your short term, but it's a gamble, right? It's not authentic to your core, and it starts to feel forced, and people can begin to, sift through that out, right? Then you have a lot of people start making fun of Adam, calling him a simp, and then the narrative started to shift from, Adam's just this cool, podcast guy to that guy who's okay with his wife having sex on camera, right? And that's not a flex, right? That's a liability. Brands don't want to touch you. All those loyal fans, they start to dip out, look for other content, and then you're left chasing, the next outrageous stunt, to stay relevant, right? It's a treadmill. It's not a business. And when the money starts drying up, like the rumor, like Adam is suggesting about No Jumper, then the treadmill is going to stop real quick, right? So the lesson here, you've got to give people real value, not just circus acts. No Jumper originally was thriving when it was a platform for up and coming artists and a window into the culture you couldn't find in a lot of mainstream outlets, right? That's what created all these diehard fans for No Jumper, right? But somewhere along the way, it became more about, Adam's antics and, it became more about Adam's antics than the content that a lot of people were showing up for, right? All this wild entertainment, it only works for a quick second until it doesn't work out anymore. And for all the creators who've lasted, like Mr. Beast, right? Mr. Beast gives value and he has insane production. A lot of his content is wholesome, even beside all his own controversy. A lot of his content is wholesome. And then he has like certain ideas and things that you can't not look at, right? Then you got Joe Rogan. He gives value, long form podcast talk show that actually gets you thinking, right? No Jumper could have essentially been the Joe Rogan of hip hop, for underground hip hop and rap, but they pivoted too quick, or they pivoted too close to like paparazzi tabloid type stuff. You know what I mean? And people don't always are going to stick around for drama. They want something that adds to their life. Now, if No Jumper is going broke like Adam 22 is suggesting, it's not just about bad management. It's actually a failure to adapt and deliver what the audience actually needs in 2025. So is No Jumper done for? Maybe, maybe not. But if Adam 22 can come out here and say this, it's not good. I mean, there's obviously a case. Obviously, there's a case study in what happens when you ride a wave without a lifeboat. The pandemic literally helped out a lot of creators and was kind of like the golden ticket. But the ones who are still standing, who blew up during the pandemic, who are still standing, they knew how to manage that, right? Slow growth, smart moves, real value. Adam 22 and No Jumper, they went all in and on crazy and chaotic behavior, and now the bill is due. What you won't see on You and I Verse, you won't see us grow too crazy that we can't handle it and not provide you guys with real value. But let me know what you guys think, man. Can No Jumper bounce back, or is this the end of an era? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Let me know what other creators, you want to see me break down. If you like this, hit that like button, subscribe, and hit the bell notification, or hit the bell so you always get notified when I drop a new video. And subscribe. We're on our way to 2,000 subscribers. We are taking the humble route. And never ever forget, it's You and I Verse. Information, application, execution. Until next time, peace.